I want you to picture a scenario that well, I think pretty much every single person listening has experienced this, either as the observer or the participant.
Mm-hmm.
It's early evening, maybe 7:30.
Come on.
You've just finished dinner. You walk into the living room, and there on the couch is a family member. Let's call her Jessica.
Okay.
She is absolutely out cold, mouth open, head tipped back. The TV is just muttering away in the back of her.
Classic post-dinner crash.
Yes. And your instinct, when you look at her, is usually, oh, look at that. She's sleeping like a baby. She must be so peaceful.
Right.
But according to this stack of research you've brought to the table today, that whole Jessica moment,
Yeah.
it isn't a sign of health at all. If Jessica is over 50, that nap is actually a symptom.
It is a symptom of a massive biological conflict happening inside her brain.
Mm-hmm.
It looks restorative from the outside, but physiologically, it's often a sign that the machinery of sleep is starting to misfire.
And for the people listening who are Jessica, or let's be honest, more likely the people who wake up at 4 a.m. staring at the ceiling, feeling tired but wired, that's who we're talking to today.
We're talking to the people who've spent, 50 years trusting their bodies to just do the right thing at night. And suddenly the system feels broken. It feels like a betrayal.
Right.
You're exhausted, you're educated, you're doing everything right, but the sleep just won't come or it won't stay.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are tackling the mechanics of rest, specifically how sleep architecture really changes after age 50. And I want to set the ground rules early.
Okay.
We are not going to tell you to stop drinking coffee after noon.
Oh, please. Our listeners are smart. They figured that out 20 years ago.
Right. We aren't doing the basic hygiene list. We are looking under the hood at the biological gears that slip as we age, and then we're going to look at the heavy-duty clinical protocols, specifically CBTI, that can actually retrain the brain. Because the research suggests that falling apart at night isn't inevitable, is it?
It is absolutely not inevitable. It is common, yes. But it is not a requirement of aging. You can pop the hood and fix the engine.
Okay, so let's start with that engine trouble. There is this persistent myth that I hear constantly. Older people just need less sleep. Grandpa wakes up at 4 a.m. because he's just done.
That is one of the most damaging myths in sleep medicine. If you look at the large-scale physiological data, the biological requirement for sleep, that 7 to 9 hour window, it doesn't change simply because you hit your 50th birthday.
So the brain still needs it.
Your brain still demands that restoration.
So the hunger for sleep is there, but the meal isn't being served.
That's a great way to put it. The need remains constant, but the ability to generate and maintain that sleep, it degrades. It's a capacity issue, not a requirement issue.
Which is actually kind of terrifying because it means we're walking around chronically sleep deprived, but telling ourselves it's just natural aging.
And that leads to a dangerous phenomenon called baseline resetting. The brain is incredibly adaptive. If you are sleep deprived for a decade, you stop realizing how impaired you are.
You just get used to it.
You accept this low-level fog, this lack of vitality as your new normal. You think, well, I guess I'm just getting old. But physically, your metabolic health, your blood pressure, your memory, they are all taking a massive hit.
Okay, so let's get into the why. Why do we lose the capacity? You've highlighted two main mechanisms in the sources. The first one is about electricity.
Yes, the degradation of the signal. We need to talk about deep NREM sleep, non-rapid eye movement sleep. This is the deep restorative physical recovery stage.
And you have this analogy in the notes about a choir. Walk me through this, because I usually think of sleep as just a switch. You're either on or off.
It's much more complex than a switch. In a young, healthy brain, entering deep sleep is like a choir singing in a cathedral. Thousands of neurons synchronize perfectly.
They all fire at once.
They fire together, then silence together. Fire, silence. This creates these huge, rhythmic, powerful brain waves that wash over the cortex.
So it's the synchronization that really matters.
Everything depends on the synchronization. That massive, coordinated wave is what shifts memories from short-term to long-term storage. It's what tells the sympathetic nervous system to calm down.
But with age.
But as we age, the choir starts to lose its timing.
It hits sloppy.
They get out of sync. One section sings a beat early, another sings a beat late. The result is that the wave becomes fuzzy. It loses its amplitude. So you might technically be unconscious, you might look like you're sleeping, but your brain isn't getting that deep, resonant, restorative wash.
So the quality of the signal degrades. That's mechanism one. Mechanism two seems to be the one that annoys people the most. That 4 a.m. wake up.
the circadian shift, or in the literature, they call it the phase advance.
This is where the body's clock just decides to fast forward.
Essentially. As we age, our bodies tend to release melatonin, the hormone that signals darkness, much earlier in the evening. And consequently, the whole rhythm just slides left.
It shifts earlier.
The peak of sleepiness hits earlier, and the wake-up signal hits earlier.
So physiologically, a 65-year-old body might think midnight is actually, 9 p.m.?
Correct. And this creates what we call social jet lag. Because socially, you don't want to go to bed at 8 p.m. You want to have dinner, watch a movie, talk to your spouse.
And this brings us right back to Jessica on the couch.
It does. Jessica is fighting a losing battle. Her biology is screaming, sleep, at 7:30 p.m. She fights it. Maybe she sits on the couch to watch the news, and boom, she's out.
But why is that nap so dangerous? If she sleeps for an hour on the couch, isn't that just extra sleep?
You would think so.
Hmm.
But sleep works on pressure. We call it homeostatic sleep pressure.
Is this where that chemical adenosine comes in?
Precisely. From the moment you wake up, a chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain. It's like a pressure valve. The more it builds, the sleepier you get. By 10 p.m., that pressure should be overwhelming, knocking you out.
But Jessica released the valve early.
She snacked on sleep. She took a 45-minute nap on the couch, burnt off that precious adenosine, and released the pressure.
Oh.
Now she wakes up, goes to bed at 10:30, but the hunger for sleep is gone. Her choir is out of tune, her circadian rhythm thinks it's almost morning anyway, and she has no sleep pressure left.
And then she stares at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering what's wrong with her.
It's the perfect storm.
Okay, so that's the grim reality. The signal is weak, the timing is off, and we're accidentally sabotaging our own sleep pressure. Let's pivot to the solution.
Let's.
Because the sources are very clear that sleep hygiene, keeping the room cool, buying nice sheets, it isn't going to fix this.
It's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It's nice, it's comforting, but it's not structural. If you have chronic sleep issues, insomnia, fragmentation, early waking, you need a cast. And the clinical gold standard for that cast is CBTI.
Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Yes, and I want to emphasize this is the first-line treatment in the American College of Physicians guidelines. It beats medication in long-term efficacy. But
there's a but.
It is not easy. And parts of it are, frankly, miserable to implement.
Well, let's get into the misery then. Because if I'm listening to this and I'm desperate, I'll try anything. But the first rule you highlighted, I have to be honest, I hate it.
Stimulus control.
The get-up rule.
The rule is simple. If you cannot fall asleep, or if you wake up and cannot get back to sleep after about 20 minutes, you must get out of bed.
Okay, hold on, let's play this out. It's 3:30 a.m. in February. My house is freezing, I'm exhausted, my body feels like lead. You want me to leave my warm duvet and go sit in the living room?
I do.
That sounds like it would wake me up more.
It feels completely counterintuitive. And in the short term, yes, you will be colder and more frustrated. But you have to look at what your brain is learning.
Which is?
Right now, your brain has learned a terrible association. Bed equals thinking. Bed equals worrying. Bed equals trying. You have conditioned yourself to be alert the moment your head hits the pillow.
So the bed has become a torture chamber.
Exactly. It's a cue for anxiety.
Yeah.
To break that, you have to be ruthless. You have to teach the brain that the bed is for sleep and sex only. If you are awake, you leave.
And what do?
You go to a dim room, read a dull book, listen to soft music. You do not return to the bed until your eyelids are physically heavy.
Even if that takes 2 hours?
Even if it takes all night. You have to break the link.
Okay. I can see the logic, even if I really hate the application. But the next part of CBTI sounds even worse. This is sleep restriction.
Or time in bed restriction. This is the most potent tool we have.
Walk me through a practical example of this, because the word restriction just sounds scary.
Okay, let's take a typical patient. Let's call him Mark. Mark goes to bed at 10 p.m. and gets out of bed at 8 a.m. There's 10 hours in bed.
Sounds luxurious.
But Mark complains that he's awake for hours in the middle of the night. He tosses, turns, looks at the clock. If we actually measure his sleep, he's only getting about 6 hours of actual shut-eye.
So 10 hours in bed, 6 hours of sleep. That's 60% efficiency. That's a failing grade.
It's terrible efficiency. It's fragmented, shallow sleep. So the protocol says we are going to restrict Mark's time in bed to match his actual sleep time.
Wait, so you tell him he's only allowed to be in bed for 6 hours?
Correct. If he has to wake up at 7 a.m. for work, he is not allowed to get into bed until 1 a.m.
1 a.m.? That sounds like torture. He's going to be a zombie.
For the first week, yes.
Yeah.
He will be absolutely miserable. But think about what we're doing to that adenosine we talked about. We are building up massive undeniable sleep pressure.
You're starving him for sleep.
We are manufacturing a craving. By the time 1 a.m. hits, his brain is so desperate for sleep that when his head hits the pillow, he dives straight into deep, consolidated sleep. He bypasses the fragmentation.
So you force the choir to get its act together by putting it under extreme pressure.
That's it. You consolidate the sleep into a solid block. Then, once he's sleeping 90% of the time he's in bed, you gently start adding 15 minutes back.
You expand the window.
You expand the window, but you start by compressing it.
I can see why people need a coach for this. Doing this alone requires, iron willpower.
It does, and a safety warning. Do not do this if you operate heavy machinery, drive long distances, or are a surgeon. Your reaction times will drop transiently. But the data shows it works better than any pill in the market.
Speaking of things that work better than we expect, let's talk about the environment. We need to address light, but your sources had a twist on this that I hadn't heard before. Usually the advice is get morning sunlight immediately.
That is the standard advice. And for a 30-year-old who can't wake up for work, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But remember our profile. We are talking about the older adult who suffers from that phase advance. The person waking up at 4:30 a.m.
Right, the early riser.
If you wake up at 4:30 a.m. and immediately flip on bright lights or watch TV, you are punishing yourself. You are telling your biological clock, good job, this is morning, let's anchor this time and do it again tomorrow.
So morning light is the enemy of the early riser.
In this specific context, yes. The protocol suggests something really interesting. If you go for a morning walk, wear sunglasses.
Oh, the signal.
Block the morning signal. But then, and here's the hack, you want to seek out bright, intense light in the late afternoon.
Why the afternoon?
Because bright light in the late afternoon hits the retina and it delays the release of melatonin. It pushes the curve to the right. It tells the brain the sun is still up, stay awake. This helps shift your sleep window later so you can make it to 10 p.m. without crashing and ideally sleep past 4 a.m.
That is such a specific, actionable tweak.
Yeah.
Sunglasses in the morning, bright light in the afternoon.
It's manual clock adjustment.
Okay, there's one more environmental hack here involving temperature. We all know a cool room is good, but you mentioned a warm bath. Doesn't a warm bath heat you up?
It does, but it triggers a paradox.
Yeah.
When you sit in a warm bath, your blood vessels dilate. They open wide, specifically in your hands and feet. We call this vasodilation.
Okay.
When you step out of the bath, all that blood is rushing near the surface of your skin. It turns you into a radiator. You dump heat from your core into the air incredibly fast.
So the result of a warm bath is actually a rapid drop in core body temperature.
And that drop is the trigger for sleep. The body needs a core temp drop to initiate the sleep cycle.
Oh, right.
You're just using hot water to trigger a cool down.
Fascinating. Now, I want to move to the physical activity section because the systematic review you brought has a headline that really surprised me. It wasn't about running or swimming.
No. The review found that resistance training, strength training was potentially the most effective intervention for sleep quality in older populations.
But let's pause here, because when I say resistance training to a 70-year-old listener, they might picture a bodybuilder deadlifting 300 pounds. They might think, I have a bad back, I have dodgy knees, I can't do that.
That is a very valid fear. But resistance training doesn't mean powerlifting. In these studies, we are talking about functional load bearing. This could be resistance bands.
Right.
It could be using the weight machines at the gym that support your back. It could be bodyweight squats holding onto a kitchen chair.
So it's about muscle engagement, not just moving iron.
It's about fatigue. It's about telling the muscle tissue it needs to repair. And there is something about the metabolic demand of repairing muscle that drives that deep restorative sleep we talked about earlier.
Muscle for sleep. I like that. It's not just cardio for the heart.
And for the listener who hasn't exercised in years, start with a professional. Get a trainer who knows how to work with older adults. But don't shy away from the weights. Your sleep needs them.
I want to briefly touch on the medical cabinet before we wrap up. Pills, Z-drugs, Ambien, Lunesta.
The consensus is really shifting away from these. We have to understand the difference between sedation and sleep. These drugs switch off the cortex. They knock you out.
But they don't produce real sleep.
They don't necessarily produce that synchronized choir of deep brainwaves. It's unconsciousness. And for older adults, the side effects, grogginess, fall risk in the middle of the night, are serious.
What about melatonin? I see it at every pharmacy.
Melatonin is tricky. For a young person with insomnia, it's mostly a placebo. But for our demographic, the over 50 crowd, Remember that the natural melatonin signal is fading.
The signal is weak.
Right, so in this specific case, low-dose prescription melatonin can actually help. You aren't using it as a sedative, you're using it to replace a missing timing signal. But again, talk to your doctor, because it interacts with other meds.
So let's synthesize this. We aren't helpless. The machinery is aging, but we have levers.
We have levers. You have the bed is lava lever stimulus control. You have the sleep hunger lever restriction. You have the afternoon light lever to shift the clock. And you have the muscle lever.
It's an active process. You can't just lie there and hope.
Hope is not a strategy for physiology.
Before we go, I want to leave the listener with one final thought from the cutting edge of the research. We talked about the choir singing out of tune, and how difficult it is to get them back in sync. But you showed me a paper about acoustic stimulation. This sounds like sci-fi.
It's incredibly promising. Researchers are developing headbands that monitor your brainwaves in real time. When they detect that you're trying to enter that deep, slow-wave sleep, the device plays a sound.
Like music.
No, it's a burst of pink noise. Think of a soft shh sound, but it plays it at the exact millisecond your brainwave is peaking.
So it's boosting the wave.
Exactly. It's like pushing a child on a swing. If you push at the exact right moment, you make the swing go higher. This sound pulse pushes the brainwave, amplifying the depth of sleep.
So we could artificially force the choir back into rhythm.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And if deep sleep is what clears toxins from the brain and protects against decline, the question becomes, could we eventually sleep our way to a younger brain?
Now that is a dream worth having. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Sleep well.